Living with ADHD can be a challenge, and dating with ADHD is definitely a challenge, we've heard many of you say. But finding the right care and proper tools needed to succeed can be life-changing. Done is an online ADHD care platform that can get you all the resources you need to help manage your ADHD. Online visits, refills, and a 24/7 care team made for you. In just 1 minute, Done's online assessment can help kickstart your ADHD treatment journey. With experienced clinicians, worry-fill refills, and online visits, you can start getting personalized care as soon as today or tomorrow. So contact an expert team that can help you around the clock and get a personalized treatment plan just for you. Here's how you do it. Take a free 1-minute assessment and book an appointment with a licensed ADHD clinician as soon as the next day. Get continuous care, one-click refills, insurance coverage, and 24/7 care team support with Done for just $79 a month, and pharmacy copays as low as $0. Visit get.donefirst.com/podcast to learn more. That's get.donefirst.com/podcast to learn more. Done. Turn ADHD into your strength.
I was so excited to get my shipment from Last Bottle Wines in the mail the other day, full of incredible red wines, all from Napa Valley. I love wine tasting, so having this to my door couldn't be happier. Also, couldn't be more excited that today's episode is brought to you by Last Bottle Wines. If you don't know already, they're a Napa-based online wine shop with a twist. They offer just one handpicked wine per day until it sells out, and they're always at incredible prices. We're talking 30 to 70% off retail. And the best part is that there's no subscriptions, no fees, and no minimum purchase. And I could not be more excited to bring this offer right now because they're having a marathon sale, which is coming up March 28th and 29th. Even better, we're offering Dateable listeners 10% off your first order with code DATEABLE. So if you are a wine lover like me, this is a great time to join. And did I mention that shipping is 100% free? So what are you waiting for? Mark your calendar for March 28th and 29th, or get on it earlier if you want. You can sign up at lastbottlewines.com and use code DATEABLE and find out why Last Bottle is the most fun way to discover and buy amazing wine.
The Dateable podcast features real stories from real people of how they make modern dating work, or not. I'm your host, Yue, former dating coach turned dating insider, if you will. On each episode, you'll hear commentary from my producer, Julie Kraftchick, and other surprise co-hosts. This episode of Dateable is brought to you by 500 Brunches. 500 Brunches connects like-minded people with similar interests to meet in real life over brunch. You answer a quick questionnaire about your interests and how you spend your time, and then they'll match you in small groups of 6 to 8 at a brunch spot in San Francisco. Get a free entry into a brunch now by signing up at 500brunches.com and using the code DATEABLE. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dateable, a show all about modern dating. Today we'll be exploring one of my favorite topics. It's about fetishes. And before we get into that, because our guest is came here with a very specific fetish in mind, I want to pull up the definition of a fetish because I have never actually looked up a definition of fetish. And according to the dictionary, fetish is a form of sexual desire in which gratification is linked to an abnormal degree to a particular object, item of clothing, part of the body, etc.
Wow.
That's very specific.
I've never looked that up either.
Right? And now I'm thinking, that's interesting that first of all, they say it's a form of sexual desire. So it's sexual.
Yep.
So anything that's fetish related, sexual, in which gratification is linked to an abnormal degree. So it's an outlier of sorts.
Yeah, abnormal was definitely the word that stuck out.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That is really interesting. Okay, so now we know what the dictionary says about fetishes. I really think about fetishes as anything that is sort of unique to your own liking. Maybe a unique preference that you may have that most other people don't have.
I don't love the word abnormal.
I don't love that word either.
I think that maybe the dictionary is a little
Unique?
dated.
Unique.
But I think
Unique, yeah.
this day and age, abnormal isn't the best word, or normal even. Like people don't define it as much in that. But I like unique.
But do people with fetishes, so I'm going to introduce our guest before we get too much into this. We have Samantha here in the studio. She is in her early 30s. She's been in San Francisco for 4 years, originally from Colorado. And you want to talk about a specific fetish. Not that you have, but someone came to you with, right?
Yes, I have some many exciting dating stories from living in San Francisco. But probably one of the most interesting ones is I was with a guy for a couple of months, and I really liked him. So I was trying to be flexible, and San Francisco is a place where you really have to keep an open mind.
Yes.
And I was continuously being open-minded. He had a couple of different fetishes, and they sort of started progressing. It started with bottoming. You know, he introduced this to me, and I was like, okay, all right, I'll read the ebook.
Can you give a definition
give
of
us
that
a definition.
for anyone that has...
According to dictionary, bottoming is when people sink that low, they're bound to reach the bottom soon. No, that's not it. The slang means the submissive partner in a sexual relationship or encounter, especially the person who is penetrated in anal intercourse.
Okay.
Opposed to the top. Okay.
I guess that makes sense with bottoming.
So he wanted to be bottom.
No.
Oh, he was into you being bottom in anal sex.
I think, but you know what? We never got far enough to figure that out. I know he was interested and wanted to like introduce me to it. I have a book on it that I should read. I think he was dominant, so he was into submissive. So that was the thing. So I was like, okay, all right, we'll see where this goes. But then I think a week later, he came to my apartment with new literature to introduce me to as a joke, quote unquote. So he like gives me this book, and it's Diaper Fetish play.
Ooh.
And I was like, what?
Is this the one that you sent me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to pull this up for everyone because Samantha just sent this over to me. The book is called The Age Play and Diaper Fetish Handbook. And it's from an author who put her years of experience as a diaper fetish model.
Yes. And I think it's called ABDL. And essentially it's like a mommy baby fetish. So this one's called the Diaper Play Handbook, but there's also, when I went to her website, I think she's like a professional escort that does this, and she has like breastfeeding videos, breast pumping videos, babysitter videos, like, and essentially the guy will be the baby and she'll mommy him and like change his diapers and breastfeed him. And yeah, there's all kinds of the videos. Like I went down a rabbit hole for a while because I was not sure how I felt about this. And I think the awkward part is when he brought over the book, he was like, oh, look at this. And I immediately cracked up and started laughing because I was like, oh, this is so funny. Where'd you find this? And I could tell that actually he was probably into it. And I had accidentally been maybe dissed his fetish a little.
This is quite the art form because I'm just looking at the glossary or the table of contents. And it goes into roles like the feminine caretaker, masculine caretaker, but then it goes into an entire section on diapering, disposable diapers, cloth diapers, liners, using diapers, changing diapers, diaper rash.
Yes.
And then age play, setting the mood, regression, era age play. Wow, there's so many elements to this. So there's definitely an art form to this. How far did you guys get?
Not very far, sadly, because I think that my reaction wasn't what he was going for, but I think it probably would have been a normal person's reaction because this is pretty unusual. So we parted ways for other reasons and we didn't get that far, but I definitely Googled it, of course, and went down the rabbit hole. You guys might want to watch the videos. And I think the woman who does this is actually quite fascinating. She's got all kinds of website footage and films and that kind of gives you the better idea.
Her name is Penny Barber for anybody interested.
So did he ever with conversations, I know you kind of laughed it off, which sometimes can be tough when someone's disclosing a fetish.
Totally.
They don't necessarily hear that. Did he give any more insight on why he was turned on by this or kind of shut it down?
He never admitted it, and I think that, I don't know, I just realized later I was telling UA and other people and they were like, oh, he's into that. Even at the time I wasn't quite sure, but that's the only reason you would own a book like that, I think. And he said he got it at a book signing and actually, was potentially the author seemed interested in him. So that was pretty funny. So everyone confirmed to me that this is probably him introducing a fetish in the most subtle way possible. So I guess next time that happens to me, I'm not going to giggle. But
so from your research into this fetish, what happens exactly?
so from what I could tell, it looked like basically it's a lot of the role play stuff, which is huge. So this particular elaborate fetish, sometimes there is breast pumping. Sometimes there's like baby milk involved. There's definitely baby bottles. I did not have the like courage to go into the diaper fetish as much because I'm really curious about the diaper changing part of it.
Yes.
But I never found a video on that.
I just feel like it's like this like psychological aspect of like wanting to be with your mother. Like there's like some like
totally.
Freudian
Yes.
aspect here.
It has to be,
It has
right?
like
Yeah.
what else would get someone excited by this?
I don't know. I wish we could talk to him.
Yeah, me too. I can give you his contact information if you like.
So did you sleep with him in the course of your relationship?
Yeah, we were, dating for a couple of months at this point. But I wouldn't say that this was necessarily, I'm not sure what the deal breaker was, but I would say that this probably was, maybe we weren't quite compatible in that way. I don't know if I was ready to take that role on as like a mother,
Yep.
breastfeeding, diaper changing type of girlfriend. I feel like
That's a lot.
Well, I'm gonna make the BDSM community cringe again, but like
Yeah.
I'm gonna use 50 Shades of Grey as a reference. But there was like this
Yes.
part about like how Christian Grey like wasn't down with vanilla sex because he was
Uh-huh.
like into all this other stuff. Do you think that this affected like your sex life overall? Like that you weren't down to do stuff like this?
Potentially, because he did have a lot of different fetishes and was very open-minded in a lot of ways, like more than I had been exposed to at that time, because that's like dating in San Francisco. So I'm sure he definitely did not want vanilla sex in any kind of way. But yeah, he had some really interesting, I think he had been, he was in a porn at kink.com in the background. Not like a porn star, but like
Oh, he's an extra.
he was
in
an
a-
extra.
How do you
Yeah.
get that gig?
I know.
Good
And then-
network with this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he was not. I think his sexual preferences definitely were not for the faint of heart. There was a lot of like BDSM background stuff with him as well. And,
But
like,
what
some
was your sex
bisexuality.
life with him?
It was honestly amazing. It was great, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was keeping an open mind, but there were just some lines that I like wasn't ready to.
Like, did you feel like you weren't giving him what he was looking for? Because I feel like I would maybe feel that way.
Yeah.
Probably. Oh yeah, definitely. I think that there was a certain amount of that because once he brought the book over, I was like, well, I can't. I mean, maybe I could. I maybe could have tried, but I felt like that was where I don't know. I don't think I could have gotten into the changing of the diapers.
But before he brought the book over, was he already a little bit kinky in bed?
Totally. Yeah. He was
Okay.
into like the tying up stuff.
And you were cool with that?
Yeah, that was totally fine. And then, I mean, it wasn't like, it was very light. I would say it's like, all that couple stuff where you're like, handcuffs, haha, let's try it. But it wasn't, there was no diapers. So, yeah, he was like definitely an experimental type of person. He was on Seeking Arrangements, I think, for a while. And he, again, was bisexual. So I'm not sure how deep it would have gone should we have stayed together. I wish that I knew because it would make for a really interesting story, I'm sure.
I think it's just an interesting topic is like, how far do you go for
Mhm.
people?
Yeah.
Like, I think this doesn't feel natural to you, right? To do this diaper fetish. But if in theory you were like, this is the one.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, is it a deal breaker that makes it not the one? Or is it something that you push yourself with? I don't know what the answer. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm also like, I wonder if he had a specific procedure that he went through. Like, let's get this light BDSM stuff out of the way, see how
Yes.
she likes that. And if she's, receptive to that, then maybe I'll bring over this ebook and see how she reacts to that. Because he must have gone through this before with previous relationships, right? So
Yeah.
I wonder, like, this is his process of introducing everything. But to me, I feel like if this is a fetish that's important to you, I would want to know upfront,
Yeah.
pretty much right away.
But then that's a mix, though, because I feel like if you know too soon and you're not down with it, your like reaction's gonna be like, no. But I feel like if you like get to, I mean, especially as a woman, maybe a man, I don't want to speak for men, but like as a woman, we are emotional beings. And I feel like the more you get to know someone, you may be more open to doing stuff out of your comfort zone, opposed to like if someone says on Tinder, like, I'm down with a diaper fetish. Be like, next.
Right.
Totally. Although there are like fetish sites, I'm sure that you could find somebody that has the same thing, or Craigslist obviously is always there. I should add too that at the time he was in his 30s and living with his mom. So
that adds a different component.
That added a dimension. Everyone was like, don't date a guy that lives with his mom. And
but I think it's that plus the diaper fetish. That's like, it's like, is there a mother fetish going on?
I want to meet the mom.
And there were some mom issues there for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
That's an interesting aspect.
I do think though that, so I struggle with this quite a bit. So I just said something that I think now I'm going to go back on, because I think you're right, Julie. It's like sometimes fetishes come out of a relationship. Maybe you've been together for a while and you get comfortable. But how is a sexual fetish different than, let's say, an Asian fetish? We've talked about yellow fever before. And it's almost like if someone comes to me with a fetish that they have that was independent of me, I would feel like I was just part of the equation. I wasn't, like I wasn't in a partnership with this person. It's almost
like they weren't like, oh, let's discuss this together. Like, this is something I want to do. But how is that different than like wanting to have like a threesome or like having these desires that they have?
That's true. I don't know. In my mind, it's like a plug and chug. Like, I'm really into diaper fetishes. I want you to play mommy. It doesn't matter who you are as long as you agree to it. It's like Asian fetish. I'm into Asian girls. And if you're an Asian girl, I'm into it. It's almost like, it seems impersonal. I feel like fetishes to me, there's no should or would, but I feel like to me in my previous relationships, they come out of a certain level of comfort with each other and certain level of chemistry with each other. And that comes with time.
I disagree a little though. Okay. I think there's people that have things that get them off and like they have that already. And like, let's be honest, when you're dating in your 20s and 30s, you are not the first person someone's been with. So there could have been something that's turned them on in the past. And it's not like, I get in some way the plug and chug mentality, but I also think it's like, if you're in a monogamous relationship specifically, like this is the person you're doing this stuff with. So you kind of need them to be on board.
Yeah.
If the fetish is that important to you. If it's not, then that's another story. But if it's like, this guy only, I'm speaking on not knowing him, but let's say he only gets off for diapers.
Yeah.
He needs a girl that's on board with that.
It's true.
Or how is he going to be sexually satisfied?
But is that an issue for him, right? It's almost like, why are you so obsessed with diapers? Maybe there's something else going on, and I don't know. But you should be in a relationship.
You can say that about like any fetish, though. Like if you think of like a threesome, right? Like people will say, "What's wrong with our relationship that you need to bring a third person in?"
Right.
So like, there's always like a why are you doing this? But then sometimes there's just people get off on it.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a way to look at this, and I've struggled with this too. When someone brings up a fetish, it also implies their previous sex life. And maybe I'm just so prude that I don't like hearing about my partner's previous sex life, that it kind of reveals something about them with someone else, right?
Or they never got someone to agree to it.
Or they never got someone to agree to it. That's true. But Julie, I told you about the guy I met on Tinder, who we like never met in person, but our initial conversation was very normal, like just small talk. Where do you live? Where do you work? And it quickly turned into, hey, I want to tell you something and I want you to be okay with it before we meet up in person. So I'm thinking like he's married or whatever, one of those things. Well, it turns out that he's really into, and he graphically depicted this with emojis, where he was very much into, one, watching the girl have sex with another man.
Okay.
And two, him and the girl sucking the same dick.
Whoa.
Can you please tell all our listeners the emojis that were given? Because that makes the story the best.
He first started with, how do you feel about, he gave me a tongue emoji and an eggplant. So I was like, oh, like blowjobs? That's pretty normal. I don't think that's anything out of the ordinary.
And then he put a tongue emoji, then the eggplant, then another tongue. So I was like, whose tongue is the second tongue? And he said, mine. So of course I went into like investigative reporting into this, and I said, like, how did you first come about this? And he said, I was with an ex-girlfriend. She was the one that was into it from a previous relationship.
Totally.
And she requested that we try it. So it took them like almost a month of putting up Craigslist ads to find that man for them to do this with. And he said it was like phenomenal when it happened. So now he's like carried this on to, he thinks it's like so necessary in his relationships going forward that before even meeting me in person, he wanted to tell me about it.
But that's a mix. I still think like your reaction without knowing this guy is going to be like, no.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like, I mean, maybe it still would have been no knowing him, but I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's like one of those things like when a guy hits you up and is like DTF and they've never met you. It's like,
I hate that.
You know what I mean? It's like, I don't get it. It's like, just take someone to dinner and like, or not even dinner, just take someone to drinks and there's a chance they will fuck you. But like if you say it like that, it's just like, no, I just don't think like women operate that way. Maybe there's obviously women that do, which has given men like this reassurance to keep sending this stuff. But
I'm really glad we're talking about that, because that's like one of the things on online dating that drives me nuts. I get so many requests like, do you want to just, how do you feel about casual? Do you want to be friends with benefits? And I'm like, you're not my friend yet. So how would it possibly be benefits with
like,
friends?
I just feel like if you went for a drink with them, like it could happen.
I have no idea if I want to have sex with you just based on like 5 pictures on Tinder. So,
but I also got one that's very actually interesting to this topic, and it's been in my vault, but I think it's like my vault of OkCupid days like 5 years ago, and I'm not on OkCupid partially because of what I got there back then. Yeah. But one guy had a milking fetish. So he like sent me this really long message about like how he wanted to, I think it was me to suck on his nipples.
What? Wow.
I can't remember if it was him on mine or me on his. I think it was actually me on him, because I remember like showing it to friends and just being like, what the fuck, you know? But like it was a really in-depth like what he was planning on doing and like the whole procedures. I really wish I still had it, but it was intense. But like getting that without any like in OkCupid, it wasn't like Tinder where you like message like I am style. It was like the first email I got.
Wow.
And I'm like,
so that's a copy and paste.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. How many people has he said this?
One that long,
But I mean, he's clearly looking for someone to fulfill this. And in that situation, I agree. It's a plug and chug. If it's like you don't know them at all.
I guess it just depends on what your priority is. Is your priority to find someone, or is your priority to satisfy this particular fetish, right? If your priority is to say, I have this fetish and I just want someone to satisfy it, yeah, you should say that in the very beginning, or put that in your profile. But if your priority is to be in a relationship where you get to a place where both of you want to explore these fetishes, then yeah, I agree. Maybe not lead with your fetishes.
Right. But I do agree it needs to be if like, I guess it depends how important it is to you. If it's like, okay, I don't need to go through life with the diapers, but I could still be in a relationship with you, then maybe it's not important. But like to say it like, it might not be a deal breaker, but if it's something that like, I don't want to be with this girl if she's unwilling to get into a freaking diaper, then it's like, you got to say that earlier, I guess. Yeah. Like, how would you know? Or at least like feel out their openness. Maybe that's the way to do it.
How much of a deal breaker it is for you, right? To have someone to do that.
Also, like, what is the classy way to bring it up so that the other person feels comfortable and not offended?
Yeah.
Because I appreciated the subtle approach, but I think that I would have been less thrown off. One, if it was further into the relationship, and two, if like we had a conversation about it. Like,
I think that's a really good point, because like to show the book, it's almost like it's like very passive in a way.
Yeah.
So like your reaction of laughing isn't that strange, because you're just like, oh, why are you showing me this book? But if he was like from the heart talked about this, like maybe you wouldn't have laughed in his face.
That's true.
I think about like, I'm almost jealous of people who have very specific fetishes, because they got to a point in some sort of relationship where they were comfortable enough to explore sort of these passions. I mean, like, I'm 36 years old and I still don't know what my fetishes are.
But not everyone has them. I don't think it's like there are people that just like vanilla sex. Like there isn't, it's not like you're missing out on something. Maybe you are. I don't know.
I feel like I am missing out on something. I am missing
But
out.
if there's not like something you're gravitating to, I don't know, I
Right.
guess if like you're happy with your sex life, then maybe it's not missing. But
Well, I'd love to know how fetishes actually develop and like any
Yes.
psychological studies on that, because I think sometimes it's stuff that happens in early life. Obviously, the diaper fetish very much so.
yeah,
Sometimes
there's
it's a
definitely
shoe.
some mother-ish things going on there.
Yeah. But also, I mean, it does sound like a lot of people develop their fetishes by being introduced by other partners.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I wonder just kind of like what is the more
Or is it something like they see on like porn and stuff?
You're
Yeah.
right. Right. Yeah, that's true. I remember I had this boyfriend in New York. Would I call him a boyfriend? Maybe not. But I was dating someone in New York, and I remember telling him that I liked having sex in the dark. Like, that's not really a fetish. But
He was like, "Oh,
I know. But I really meant it as like, I think I just meant like I enjoy having sex at night versus during the day. And then he took that to the next level, and he like dragged me into the bathroom and turned off all the lights, including his alarm clock. He unplugged the alarm clock, and he's like, "How about now?" And I'm like, "I don't need pitch black." And he took it to the next level, and I was like, "Is this a fetish of mine? Do I enjoy having sex in pitch darkness where I can't see my partner?" And then I quickly reached the conclusion, no, this is not a fetish of mine.
But I think it's like, what is that line of fetish? Like,
Yeah.
I'll admit, like, I definitely like an out, like a public, semi-public
Oh,
place.
yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's a like, I would definitely like get off on that, but I wouldn't be like, if someone wasn't down with it, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, deal breaker.
Yeah, that's true.
This is over. Like, it's not like that big a deal to me.
Totally.
I don't know. I guess like, what's that line of like fetish versus like something exciting?
But I guess it's all relative, right? Maybe for someone, they would hear, oh, like public stuff. Oh, that's such a fetish. I've like never done that before. That's so crazy. Or someone who's like has sex in public all the time, and they're like, oh, that's just normal, Julie. It's like my everyday.
Or like the diaper guy's like, whatever.
Whatever.
I know that was probably
That's
just
nothing.
stage one.
Yeah.
Imagine if I'd hung in there. Who knows?
Well, I mean,
what
I
it
think that
becomes.
is another thing too. It's like, how do you like gradually bring it? I'm like trying to think of like, if I had this major fetish that was a deal breaker, like, does it make sense to like gradually introduce stuff like we were kind of talking about earlier, like light play and then like keep it going? Or like, is there another approach, like just having like an open conversation, like more theoretically, like, what are your like desires and fantasies and that type of stuff?
So I kind of like this approach. I went to like group therapy a couple weeks ago, and the therapist said, whenever you're talking to your partner, you always want to start with your ideal world. So this is the world where not all of your needs are going to be met. So maybe if you did have these fetishes, you speak to your partner in that, what's in your ideal world, what would happen sexually?
Yeah.
Right? Let's start with that.
I like
and
that, 'cause
then
then it's
you
not
pull it
putting
back.
it on them as much. It's not like, oh, you're disappointing me because you're not doing it.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly. And then you can have an open conversation about like the craziest, wildest things that you can think of
Yep.
sexually. And then you just pull back from there and eventually build from
Well, I
that.
read somewhere, and I'm like trying to remember what article was or where I read it, but it was like one of the most demoralizing things you can do is like put someone's fetishes down.
Mm.
So like the laughing kind of probably falls into
Yeah.
that. And it's like
Really?
a lot of time too, people don't even necessarily want to do what they say.
Yeah.
Like if you said this, like it would be like I mean, if you talk to people, like how many people are probably like, oh, I want to have a threesome, and then how many people actually do it?
Right.
Like it's
Yeah.
not necessarily
Logistically is really hard.
well, just saying,
It's
like,
very
yeah, but just
complex.
like because you want to do it doesn't mean you're doing it all the time. Where it's like, in theory, this sounds like a really good idea, but then like if you were like to your partner, like, what do you think of threesomes? Like, oh, never. Like it just has like a very like negative connotation to it.
Totally.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What about you, Samantha? Do you have any fetishes?
It's time to take a quick break so we can tell you about the latest service we have been building over at DATEABLE. We'll be offering a platform to connect you with vetted dating experts from our network to help with everything from dating profile reviews, coaching to see where you're getting stuck in dating, and even ways to get real feedback about your dating style. The sessions typically run from 30 minutes to an hour and can all be done via Skype or Google Hangouts, so you can be anywhere. We're so excited about this because so many of you wrote in asking how you can find people to help up your dating game, and this should be a great way to get personalized, affordable advice. We'll be adding more coaches and more services, and of course, let us know if there's something specific you like to see. To meet the coaches and book your session today, visit dateablepodcast.com/coaching. Now back to the show.
What about you, Samantha? Do you have any fetishes?
Gosh, I mean, I like the public place thing. I know
There's something hot about that.
There's something really hot
But it's
about
like,
that.
for me, it's like a semi. I don't know if I'm like, oh, I'm just going to be out in the open, like doing it. It's like my building. Like if there was like somewhere that's like kind of open, but not like,
I'm a card-carrying Mile High Club member, and I
Oh.
know a lot of that.
That's
But
like, that's
I
like.
wouldn't call it a
same.
fetish though, because that was a really complicated logistical process.
Yeah, I
That's
was
what
gonna
people
say,
always
how-
say
how is it?
about it.
Was it on an international flight?
If only. No,
It wasn't.
It was
okay.
Vegas to California, or no, Vegas. Yeah.
So like an
It's
hour
like a half
flight.
an hour flight.
Well, it's actually a good story if you guys want.
Yeah, I wanna hear
You want to
this.
hear it? Okay, so
We're talking about fetishes anyway.
Okay, my college boyfriend and I were flying back home for Christmas to meet my parents, and so
Gonna start off right.
Yeah, right. So we really wanted to, show up fresh and relaxed and looking, So we decided we had 2 flights. We had a layover in Las Vegas, and so the first flight, we thought about it a lot and we're like, okay, we're going to do it. So we went into the bathroom, and pretty much the second the door closed, the captain comes online and he's like, could the passengers in the bathroom please step out of the bathroom?
Oh,
And
were you in there too long or
we
something?
were like only in there for 15 seconds, but we were in there together. So we walk out, and I'm not
Oh.
kidding you, the entire plane like slow claps. And we're just
What?
like,
That
we wanted
is
to
mortifying.
die. It was awful. And I was like, we were young at this time too, so I had that was when I had embarrassed myself so many times that I could still feel the
But
pain.
you guys didn't have sex in the bathroom that first time.
That was the flight number 1. So then by flight number 2, we were like, we have to do this now because we've endured the humiliation. Like, we don't have any of the glory. So, and thankfully, one of my college friends was flying back too, so she had our backs. So we're like, okay, we're going to do this. And even better, it was a Vegas flight. A bunch of people on it just won a bunch of money gambling.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flight attendants were like sexy and,
They're all drunk.
everyone's-
everyone was drunk. So everyone was distracted by many things. And so we like snuck in there. And I do not recommend, it's got to be international flight in the seats. We did bathroom, and that was just like so tight. Like, I didn't want to touch the walls or anything.
Yeah, everything's so gross.
Yeah, it was really complicated. And then we did it and we pulled it off, but there was a whole line outside the bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and my friend had to talk to everyone. They were like, she's sick and he's helping her. And something like
amazing.
that. Just making up excuses for
Well,
us.
that,
So.
it brings up a good point, because I've always had like the fetish of like a hot tub or like water, and then anyone that's done
the
it is always
reality.
like,
Don't
it's
do it.
awful.
Yeah.
Like, it's not good at all. So it's like kind of like that like the Mile High one. It's like has this glorification.
Yeah, but once you do it, you're like, oh, it's disgusting.
But I wonder,
Seriously.
like, to bring us back full circle, like, I wonder if, like, the baby fetish,
Uh-huh.
like, if you did it once, and he was,
Yeah.
like, even, like, it goes back to, like, do I really even want this, or is it something I just, like, seems exciting?
Definitely.
I mean, I'm trying to be really open-minded about this. So I'm like, what would I enjoy out of this experience? I would enjoy him sucking on my tits. Yes. Okay. That would be like really nice. You know, prolonged tit sucking. That would be really good. But the diaper part, that I don't know if I could. I mean, I don't even like diapers on kids. I don't know if I would like it on a grown adult.
That's the part that's like, what does it do to you after? Like, I think there was, like, I remember, like, in Sex and the City, there was, like, the threesome episode.
Yeah.
It was like, well, what happens afterwards? It's like...
That's true.
Or, like, I think it was, like, up the butt. It wasn't the threesome bun. But it was, like, still, like, then you're, like, the girl that did it. Like, it's, like, the what happens after. And it's, like, this diaper fetish. Like, are you going to respect this guy that you just saw in a diaper, like... milking?
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
definitely.
And I think about, and maybe I'm like a germaphobe in some ways, but
Yeah.
you know, like we talked about this in a previous episode with fetishes. My friend dated this guy had a drawer full of sex toys. And in my mind, I'm just like, ew, how many other people did he use these sex toys on? Like, same with the diapers, you know, like how many other times did he use diapers with someone?
Fresh diapers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing, right? You get fresh, but maybe that's his
Are they
fetish is to
disposable?
reuse.
Are they disposable?
But remember, there's so many different kinds. Remember, there was like cloth diapers,
Yes.
disposable diapers. There were quite a few different diapers that you could be using.
And that's what flashed through my mind, was like, okay, so how deep does this go? Am I going to actually be changing real diapers? Are you going to be relieving yourself in
That's
these
what
diapers?
I was going to ask. Like, I was gonna say, is there like poop involved? Because then
exactly.
it's just like go to a whole different level.
I
but
think
that's why you wear diapers.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
I mean, that's got to be a big part of it. So that was when I think the line kind of got really weird for me, trying to think about that.
Did you guys have a conversation though about it, or was it kind of just dismissed?
It was pretty quickly dismissed. And now I realize that you said that, if you dismiss somebody's fetish in that kind of way, that it could be probably harmful to their psychology somehow. So.
I think that goes with everything when it comes to your partner approaching you with something. You always have to validate what they're saying first and then give your opinion what you think.
Totally.
So, but I mean, honestly, I would have had the same reaction.
Yeah.
But then at the same, I guess the other way you could argue is that maybe you just weren't compatible because you weren't as open as he was.
That's true.
So like maybe there's like a line of how much you can push yourself without being like you can't compromise your own self either.
That's true.
Yeah.
But to me, I feel like it's also timing of when you bring up sexual desires. I feel like in the middle of the day with an ebook, it may not be the best way.
Totally.
But if it's like post-coital, we're like in bed, I'm like still flushed, and he says something like, "Hey babe, like, how do you feel about putting diapers on me?" Then maybe
it's
more
like everything.
open to
Timing and the way you say it is everything.
Is everything. It's everything. But it's super fascinating. I still find this whole thing super fascinating. And I wish we could get him on the show because I like to hear his side of the story. And at what point, and I don't want to offend anybody, but at what point is a fetish unhealthy, right? Are all fetishes okay? Or, I like to get a professional's opinion. At some point, maybe this is not a fetish anymore. It's an illness of some sort. Who knows?
In the subject of proposals for fetishes, so I had another guy that I was dating, and after 3 dates, so this one introduced BDSM in a way that it felt fun and playful, and it was interesting. But I dated another guy, and he brought out his like sex toy box, I think after dinner on the 3rd date. We weren't even making out. Yeah, it was so awkward. He was like, "Hold on, let me get something." And he brings out this box, and I immediately had that same flash of like how many people have used all of these toys.
Right.
And he pulled out like a gag and a bunch of stuff. And I was honestly like freaked out. So that's like, like the same guy kind of introduced the same concept, but in a much more like, progress. And we kind of like took it from one level to the next. So that kind of worked.
Totally.
So yeah, it definitely makes all the difference, I think, in the way that you do it.
You have to be comfortable.
So I think, should we talk about takeaways?
Yeah,
I think that's like
some takeaways.
I think takeaways, like how you say it is everything, and how you lead up to it is everything.
Yeah,
probably.
Samantha, any takeaways?
I would say takeaways.
How would you have handled the situation differently?
Oh, yeah. The problem is it took me off guard. So I think if it had been presented in a completely different context, I'm sure I would have been much more sensitive, especially because I didn't know he didn't present it as like what his thing was per se. So it was definitely like I couldn't have prepared my reaction properly. Instead, it just, of course, took me completely off guard. But if this would ever happen again, I would definitely be open-minded and just kind of pace my reaction a little bit and ask a lot of questions first before, kind of getting an idea, is this something you're into, or is this like a gag gift that you've brought over?
Yeah,
so,
right. Definitely.
Yeah.
I have 2 takeaways. One is from the fetish side and one is from the receiving end side. So for the person with the fetish, I think it's really important to know how important this fetish is to you.
Yeah.
And if it is sort of a deal breaker, or if it's the leading quality you're looking for in someone, instead of going online to find that person, I would go to these groups, these meetups or BDSM groups or these sex parties where you're bound to find someone who's into it, right?
Yes.
Just like the spray and pray on like Tinder. It just feels like
it doesn't also, I hate to say it, but people share these sort of stories with their friends. So if you sent a message like that to Julie or to me, chances are we probably showed it to like 10 of our friends.
Yeah, like the
because-
milk guy. I showed that to everyone, the milkman.
Yeah, the
Oh,
milkman.
God.
Well, because it's so out of context,
Right.
right? So I would say if the deal breaker is the fetish, then go somewhere where you have a higher chance of finding someone who accepts that sort of fetish.
I think it's like what we talked about before, just like the sending it to someone that you don't know at all.
Yeah.
Like then it becomes like a joke.
Yeah.
Like even if I was down with that, like I think it would just like come off like almost like spammy.
Yeah, it does.
That happened to me too. And this profile is on OkCupid in San Francisco constantly. It's called like Two Guys for You, and it's some guy or multiple guys or a 12-year-old playing a joke that's into double penetration.
God.
So that was one of the fetish emails that I got on OkCupid where I was like, what is going on? Like I didn't grasp it because I was new to the city and I didn't understand like the scene out here at first. So I was like, 2 boyfriends could be fun. Like, what's the deal? Is that what they're into? And then of course, as the conversation progressed, it became really clear what was going on. It wasn't like I get to have 2 boyfriends. It was like, you know,
It's
they're
sexual.
gonna have a like pyramid.
I think OkCupid. I don't know. For me personally, I've gotten the most of those on OkCupid
Really?
out of any other dating site.
Hands
Yeah.
down.
OkCupid is
Hands
definitely-
down.
Interesting. Well, so my takeaway for the receiving end is one is to, I'm actually going through this myself, to think broad, like to open my mind to think like, what is my ultimate sexual experience beyond what I already know? Because we only rely so much on what we already know. But ultimately, because if you're going to be with someone for a long time, there's so much you can explore in the bedroom or in public, whatever it may be. So I was just say, like, think more broad. What are some of the possibilities out there? And keeping an open mind, because when you have this sort of mindset, if your partner comes to you with a fetish, you won't have that sort of, whoa, no, that's a joke, or I'm not into it. It's more of like, let me think about it.
Right.
And that's the other thing I learned in that group therapy session. Our therapist said, you know, whatever is presented to you, your first answer should always be, let me think about it.
Yeah.
Don't give a yes or a no. Let me think about it.
Well, that was like what we talked about earlier. I think the auto shutdown is like demoralizing.
Yeah.
And like I think really it's, and you talked about this, Samantha, too. It's like asking questions more and like getting to the root of like, how important is this? Is there something like the reason why you're doing it? Like maybe there's something with the diaper fetish that you could have found a middle ground on that would have got to the same end results.
Yeah, definitely.
No, we don't know because we didn't ask questions.
Yeah.
Totally.
So start at the most ideal situation and then just pull it in and compromise.
And I
somewhere.
liked what you said, Yue, too, about having like that hypothetical quest. Like, this is what ideally I see for me, opposed to this is what I want. You're not fulfilling it for me. That comes from like a very negative, accusatory like way versus like more hypothetical fantasy.
Yeah. And we're in this together. So let's explore together.
Right. And then you can see someone's like, if you are the type of person that like out of the box sex life is important to you and essential for you. If someone's like, oh, what's your like ideal? It's like missionary. And like, then you'll see that you're not compatible.
Yeah. Totally. Well, I'm totally inspired now for 2018, I'm going to find a fucking fetish. That's.
I thought you had this in the dark fetish.
Oh my God. I love
now when I see you, I'm going to shut
dark.
off all the lights as a joke every time.
But we have this in the like season 1. We had this conversation about fetishes. And I remember you and Michael being like, Yue, what's your fetish? And I was like, I think I'm into water stuff. And both of you shut me down so hard. You were like, ew, like it hurts. There's so much chafing in water.
I've never done water stuff, but I've heard from multiple people that it's not as glamorous as it sounds.
And I realized where that came from. It's like, I'm not into water stuff, but for like all the porn and all the movies I've watched, it's like the most romantic scenes are always in water.
Totally.
In a hot tub, right?
Yeah.
Or sex on the beach or something.
Sex on the beach.
Yeah, but that
And
also
then-
logistically is
not a good idea. And then after that episode, I was like, God, why was that my first reflex?
Yeah.
It's because in media, that's what's portrayed.
Totally.
But then I had flashbacks of my friend being like, I got an UTI after having sex in the pool. I'm like, I know, that's exactly what would happen in the pool.
Like what we were saying earlier, when someone says what their fetish is, it might not even really be what their fetish is. Like it could be something they've seen somewhere or like heard about. Like I think like, I don't know why I keep saying threesomes because I think it's just so mainstream media wise too that people are like, I should be doing threesomes. Like, why aren't I doing this? But they may not actually even want that.
Yeah.
It might just be the idea of it.
Exactly. So 2018, I'm going to find out what I really want.
Maybe like a furry fetish.
That would work with your dog.
Or cosplay.
Cosplay could be interesting.
We're going to see you at Folsom Street Fair.
I know. I'm like, you guys, I'm really into chaps. Like, who knew?
She's going to do a 180 in 2018. She's going to be in the furry garden.
I know that when I go on
Petting
like any of the porn sites, because there's categories, there's a few that I'm drawn to, which is always like cam. I like cam stuff.
Oh,
so like security cam stuff.
Oh,
yes.
interesting.
I also like I like watching sex club stuff. I don't know I don't know what it is. I like because I think I'm such a multitasker. I like seeing multiple things at the same time. It's a lot of stimulation. Maybe those are two avenues I can explore. Who knows?
Voyeurism. I love it.
Voyeurism.
If not, you always have the dark.
I always have sex in the dark. Yes, I'm so living on the dangerous side. Do we have a question of the day? All right, question of the day comes from Gabriel, who says, my girlfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years now and recently started exploring in the bedroom. Lately, she's been really turned on by whips, especially whipping me. Don't get me wrong, it really turns me on to see her turned on, but I'm not a big fan of whipping. It hurts and it snaps me out of the moment. How should I approach this with her?
Ooh, this is tough.
That is tough because you want to see your partner turned on, but at the same time, if you're not really into it,
it's not fair to make it hurt for someone.
It's not fair, yeah. Are there different levels of whips maybe? Maybe there's some whips that don't hurt as much.
Or maybe he needs to just say, like, this is like exactly what he said. I'm turned on, that you're turned on, but it's hurting me. Like, can you go a little lighter or something? Yeah. Maybe it's the way she's doing it, but he needs to say something.
He does need to say something. He can't subjugate to her like this.
Because this is like, I mean, consent. It all comes down to that, right? And I know like verbally he probably gave his consent, but he's like not all in it. And that's just, it's not sustainable.
This is like a common problem, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, I've had friends that have expressed the same thing to me. So I didn't really know what to tell them because I know that it's a tricky thing, but probably, I think that there's a way that you can technique it so that it hurts less.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then I think also I remember if anyone's heard about BDSM, there's many different tools that you can look at. So maybe they just need to switch which type of.
I think that's really what it comes down to. Because like you don't want to be like, no. But then at the same time, it can't just be like, this isn't working for me at all. Like I'm not happy. Like how do you come to that middle ground?
I think it all goes back to communication. But in this particular case, it's all about what does she need in that scenario? What is it that turns her on? Is it the act of whipping him or is it the act of whipping? Right? So maybe it's the aggression of her having a whip in her hand and the power of just hitting something. So maybe they can compromise on her just hitting the floor or the wall and
stuffed
not
animal.
him. Or stuffed animal. And not him per se. Right? But I agree. You need to, Gabriel, you need to like communicate this. Otherwise it's going to be domestic abuse.
I think it's really nice that Gabriel, that you've kind of like addressed her fantasies and like gone along with it. But there is definitely that line.
Yeah. And even in the BDSM community, don't they have like a safe word? A safe word, right? To the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to say the safe word when I'm not comfortable anymore. So maybe you two should establish a safe word in your relationship too. Yeah. It's all about pushing boundaries and finding where the boundaries are and communicating that.
But she also, I mean, if they're in a loving, committed relationship, or even if she just cares for him as a human being, she probably doesn't want to hurt him.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know if he doesn't say it. She's probably like, he likes this.
Yes, exactly.
So I think it's just bringing it up is important.
Yeah.
I had an ex-boyfriend with a whipping fetish that liked to be whipped.
Okay.
We never did it ourselves, but I heard the story. This was actually Diaper Guy. And
Diaper Guy was into everything.
He was. He really was. But yeah, he talked about it. And it was really interesting to hear about like, I guess one night he went to one of those clubs or whatever, and they just somebody like extensively whipped him, and he talked about kind of like the euphoria of the experience. Because I think if you like whipping, it's like really essentially it creates a bunch of chemicals in your body that respond to the
Right.
pain. So
Right.
it becomes like, that's how it's supposed to be. And that's kind of like the point of it, I think. So they might be doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We had an episode, Rope Bondage, that I believe was in season 4.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about how actually a lot of BDSM isn't even sexual.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So maybe also another option is maybe this girl can find another outlet to get off with this that isn't even sexual, that she's
Totally.
technically not cheating on him or whatnot, or depending on their relationship, maybe it's not a problem to find someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't they have those hotels in Asia where you can just go in and trash everything? I feel like she might benefit from that. Just go in the
Definitely.
hotel room, trash everything, and come back and have sex.
Absolutely.
But I think that is an interesting point. I want to wrap this up. But even fetishes, although they're sexual in nature, a lot of them don't end in sex.
Right.
And I find that so fascinating. Remember I told you about my friend who had guys who would pay to watch her eat?
Right.
And it was like, it was a fetish of theirs, but then it would never end in sex. They just got off on it and they would go home and like jerk off.
wow.
Yeah, super interesting. I just
Yeah.
find fetishes so interesting. If you, our listeners, have a fetish or are curious about one, we love to have you as a guest on our show. We want to explore all of this. And I'm the first to admit I know so little about any sort of fetishes, but again, in 2018, I'm going to find that fetish that's going to be my brand. Okay.
Yep.
So
Love it.
you guys need to help me.
Tights
And we will be
fetish.
open and we will not laugh at you. No
Yes.
matter what you say.
We will validate
respect.
you,
Yeah.
unless if you're hurting yourself or someone else, then we'll have to report you. Okay, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much, Samantha,
Thank
for
you.
telling us your story. And hopefully we will get someone with a diaper fetish on the show to tell us their side. And what does that really feel like? I'm so super curious.
Milkman, if you're still out there, my OkCupid message.
At
we want
Milkman,
you.
yeah, Milkman.
I don't remember your name or anything about you. I think you had a screen name that was like Milkman. No
That's
joke.
There you go. Yeah, we love to have Milkman on the show.
Yeah.
I love to get 2 tongues and an eggplant on the show as well. So let's get everyone on the show. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much again, Samantha, for coming. And we invite you, our listeners, to be a guest on our show or just to write in and tell us any stories or ideas you may have. We always welcome that. And as always, we can anonymize you by giving you a made-up name to protect your identity. Okay, on that note,
Stay dateable.
Your action item for this week is to think about how everything is a conversation in a relationship. Everything's up for discussion and everything's negotiable. So make sure you leave freedom for your partner to propose whatever it is on their mind. This episode of Dateable is brought to you by 500 Brunches. 500 Brunches connects like-minded people with similar interests to meet in real life over brunch. You answer a quick questionnaire about your interests and how you spend your time, and then they'll match you in small groups of 6 to 8 at a brunch spot in San Francisco. Get a free entry into a brunch now by signing up at 500brunches.com and using the code DATEABLE. If you didn't know already, we have a revamped website with articles, videos, and content all about modern dating. You can also find our premium Why series, where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. We've had some great feedback about how actionable these episodes are, so check them out on our website or iTunes Music. Also, visit the site today to see the latest about coaching, where we connect you with Dateable approved experts to help with everything from dating profile reviews, coaching, and even gathering real feedback about your dating style in a personalized and affordable way. To connect with us, visit dateablepodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all under Dateable Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and auto-download the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast player so you never miss an episode.